Hey everyone, welcome to this deep dive. It's all about Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix.
That's right.
Maybe you're thinking, oh, another relationship book.
Right.
But this one is different. We're not talking about, just communication tips and date night ideas.
Yeah.
We're going deeper here, figuring out why we pick the partners we do and how to build a relationship that's really fulfilling.
Absolutely. It all comes down to understanding what's going on beneath the surface. Those unconscious drives that are shaping our love lives.
Right. So Hendrix isn't just giving advice. He's giving us a roadmap to a deeper, more conscious connection.
Exactly.
So the book starts with this story about Maggie and Victor.
Right.
And they have this instant, overwhelming attraction. Like they can't get enough of each other and they elope after just 2 months.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fairy tale.
It does. But Hendrix uses this whirlwind romance to introduce a pretty radical concept, the imago.
Okay, so the imago, I've heard that term before, but I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It always sounded a little intimidating. So what is it exactly and why should we care?
Well, the imago is basically this unconscious image we have of our ideal partner.
Okay.
And it's formed in childhood based on our early experiences, especially with our caretakers.
Interesting.
It's like a mental blueprint for love that's created before we even know what love is.
So it's not just about who we're attracted to, but why we're attracted to them.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a little unsettling.
Okay.
We're often drawn to partners who resemble our parents.
Huh.
Not just in the good ways, but also in their negative traits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Seriously, so you're saying the things that drove me crazy about my mom might be showing up in my partner.
It's more common than you think. Our unconscious mind is always looking for familiar dynamics, even if those dynamics were painful in childhood.
Wow.
It's like we're trying to recreate our past, hoping to get it right this time.
But why would our brains do that to us? If those patterns were hurtful in the past, why would we want to repeat them in our romantic relationships?
It's all about survival. Our unconscious mind is focused on healing old wounds, on getting those unmet needs met. By choosing a partner who resembles a parent, even in their flaws, we're subconsciously trying to work through those unresolved issues.
So it's not just about finding someone we love, it's about finding someone who can help us heal.
In a way, yes. But this often plays out in ways that we aren't even aware of. It's not a conscious choice, it's an unconscious drive. And it's not always healthy. Hendrix talks about these invisible scars from childhood that impact our adult relationships.
Right.
He gives this really poignant example of his own daughter, Leah,
Okay.
and how even in loving families, children can experience these little wounds from unmet needs.
Yeah, I think that resonates with a lot of people, whether they're parents themselves or reflecting on their own childhood.
Sure.
But how do these childhood wounds actually show up in adult relationships?
Well, Hendrix identifies a few common patterns. For example, fusers crave constant closeness because they felt pushed away as children. They might become overly dependent on their partners, fearing abandonment.
Yeah, I know a few people who fit that description perfectly. They're always texting, always needing to know where their partner is, what they're doing. It can be a little much, honestly.
Right. On the flip side, you have the isolators. They need lots of space because they felt stifled or controlled in childhood. They might withdraw emotionally or physically, fearing engulfment.
So these aren't just personality quirks. They're actually deep-seated coping mechanisms that we developed in childhood.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that these patterns aren't conscious choices. They're ingrained survival strategies developed to navigate challenging circumstances. Think about a child who is constantly told to be quiet or suppress their anger. They might grow up to be emotionally withdrawn, even in intimate relationships.
It's like we're carrying around these invisible scripts from our past that are playing out in our present relationships.
Exactly. And those scripts form the basis of our false self, the mask we wear to navigate the world and protect ourselves from further hurt. But that mask can also prevent us from experiencing true intimacy and connection.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these childhood wounds can really impact adult relationships, sometimes in very subtle ways. But Hendrix doesn't stop there, does he? He also talks about the power struggle that emerges in relationships. What exactly does he mean by that? So we're carrying all this baggage from our past, into our relationships.
Right.
And inevitably that leads to clashes. But are you saying all relationships are destined for this power struggle Hendrix talks about?
Well, it's not about destiny, but it is a common dynamic. Imagine two people coming together, each with their own imago, their own baggage, their own unconscious needs.
Right.
It's like trying to fit two puzzle pieces together that don't quite match.
So those classic arguments, about who does the dishes or whose turn it is to take out the trash, they're not really about chores at all.
Exactly. It's not about winning or being right.
Mm.
It's this unconscious dance with each partner trying to get their needs met by the other. That unmet need from childhood is bubbling up, creating friction.
This is all making me rethink some past arguments, seeing them in a whole new light.
Right.
But if this power struggle is so common, how do we ever get past it? Hendrix makes this distinction between unconscious and conscious marriage. Right.
He does. The power struggle can lead to despair and even divorce, or it can become a breakthrough point. A conscious marriage is about moving beyond that unconscious dance and choosing to create a different kind of relationship.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do that? It feels a bit overwhelming to think about rewiring, our entire relationship dynamic.
Well, it starts with awareness. The first step is recognizing that both you and your partner are carrying these invisible wounds, these imagos, these unconscious patterns. You're not battling each other. You're battling your pasts.
So instead of trying to change our partner, we need to focus on understanding them and ourselves.
Precisely. A conscious marriage is about becoming the right partners for each other, and that requires a deep level of understanding and empathy.
Empathy for our partner's wounds, empathy for our own wounds.
Right. Hendrix highlights several key characteristics of a conscious marriage, and they all revolve around this deeper understanding. Open communication, for example, is crucial. It's about truly listening to your partner's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
Right. He also talks about mirroring and validation, techniques that can help us become better listeners, right?
Yes, those are powerful tools for creating a more conscious connection. Mirroring involves reflecting back what your partner is saying, both verbally and emotionally, to ensure you're truly understanding them. It can feel a little awkward at first, but it helps create a sense of safety and validation.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful. It's especially during heated discussions.
Right.
It's like taking a pause button and making sure you're both on the same page. But Hendrix doesn't just leave us with these big picture concepts, does he? He also offers some practical exercises couples can try.
He does, and some of them are surprisingly simple, but they can have a profound impact on the relationship.
Okay, give me an example. What's one of those exercises that listeners can start using today?
One that I find particularly helpful is re-romanticizing. It sounds a bit cheesy, I know,
Okay.
but hear me out.
All right, I'm intrigued. What does re-romanticizing involve?
It's about bringing back those small acts of love, those gestures that made you feel special and appreciated in the early days of your relationship. Think about it. How often do you do those things now?
Honestly, not nearly enough.
We all get busy routines take over, and those little gestures often fall by the wayside. But Hendrix emphasizes that these consistent acts of caring can actually shift our perception of our partner. They remind us why we fell in love in the first place.
So we're not just being nice, we're actually rewiring our emotional responses.
Exactly. It's like building positive associations with our partner. Every act of kindness releases oxytocin, the love hormones strengthening the bond between you.
That makes a lot of sense. What are some other practical exercises Hendrix suggests?
Another powerful one is stretching. This involves asking your partner to help you grow by changing specific behaviors that are causing conflict.
So it's not about criticizing those annoying habits, it's about framing them as opportunities for growth.
Precisely. You're approaching your partner not as someone who needs to be fixed, but as someone who's capable of growth. You're saying, I love you and I believe in you.
What a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of battling each other, you're becoming allies in each other's personal development.
Exactly. Hendrix also discusses a technique called core scene rewriting, which is particularly helpful for addressing those repetitive arguments that seem to plague so many couples.
Oh, I know those all too well. It's like hitting the same wall over and over again.
Right.
But how do you actually rewrite a pattern that feels so ingrained?
It starts with recognizing the core scene, the underlying dynamic that's fueling the conflict. Hendrix gives the example of a couple, Jack and Deborah, who kept having these exhausting fights that would drag on for hours. They called them 3 o'clockers because they often lasted until 3 in the morning.
3 o'clockers. Oh, I know those all too well. But how did they break free from that pattern?
Hendrix had them literally write out a new script for their arguments, one that acknowledged their needs and created a more positive outcome. It's about being proactive, anticipating those triggers, and having a plan for how to respond differently.
So you're not just reacting in the heat of the moment, you're consciously choosing a different path.
Yes. It's about stepping out of those automatic unconscious reactions and creating a new, more conscious way of relating.
This is all incredibly insightful, but I have to admit, it also makes me wonder about the amount of effort involved in creating a conscious marriage. It sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it does sound like an ongoing process, not a
Mhm.
quick fix.
Right.
But if it leads to a deeper, more fulfilling relationship, maybe it's worth the effort.
Well, Hendrix believes that the rewards of a conscious marriage far outweigh the challenges. He says it's not about finding a perfect partner. It's about becoming healing agents for each other.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to fix each other. We're supporting each other's growth. Exactly. And as we heal our own wounds, we become capable of deeper love, deeper connection, and deeper fulfillment. But Hendrix also has something interesting to say about relationships that don't work out.
Wait, you're telling me there's a silver lining to heartbreak? I'm listening.
Hendrix believes that every relationship, even the challenging ones, teaches us something about ourselves. They can reveal patterns we need to break free from, needs we need to acknowledge, and ultimately they can point us toward what we truly desire in a partner.
So those painful breakups, they're not just failures, they're opportunities for growth. It's almost like they're redirecting us toward a path that's more aligned with who we are.
That's a great way to put it. They can be incredibly valuable learning experiences, even though they're often difficult to go through.
Mhm.
Hendrix even shares his own personal journey in the book. He talks about how his first marriage fell apart and how that ultimately led him to this work, this deep exploration of love and relationships.
That makes the whole concept feel even more relatable. He's not just talking about this from an academic standpoint, he's lived it.
Exactly. And it's inspiring to see how he turned his own pain into something so positive, something that helped millions of people.
It reminds us that we're all works in progress, right? We all have these wounds and patterns from our past, but we also have the power to heal and grow. And maybe those failed relationships were actually stepping stones toward a more conscious and fulfilling love.
Absolutely. And that's the ultimate message of getting the love you want. It's not about finding a perfect partner. It's about using the power of love to become the best versions of ourselves.
So much of what we've talked about today has really resonated with me. What do you think is the most important takeaway for our listener?
Well, Hendrix offers a profound invitation to go beyond the surface of our relationships. He encourages us to understand the unconscious forces at play and to embrace the healing power of love.
It's about becoming more conscious, more intentional in our relationships, not just letting those old patterns play out on autopilot.
Right? And remember, even though this deep dive is ending, your exploration of these ideas doesn't have to master about it. Hendrix leaves us with a powerful thought. He says, even failed relationships serve a purpose. They reveal the areas where we need to grow, the patterns we need to break free from. So as you move forward, take some time to reflect on your own relationship history. What are the recurring themes? What are the lessons you've learned?
Understanding your past gives you the power to create a different future. A future filled with the love you truly want.
And remember, you are not alone on this journey. We're all in this together.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into getting the love you want. We hope this episode has sparked some new insights and inspired you to approach your relationships with more awareness and intention. Until next time.